Hi.
Hi.
I'm Sarah.
Welcome to
what we're titling optimistically the Future Bloggers Meetup. Because, hey, Buttercup! We just got started. I'm introducing myself. I'm Sarah. I work at Cali. And today, me and my colleague Elmer, we're going to talk about blogging in the hopes that more people start blogging or restart blogging. And we are very punchy, so I think usually, classically, Elmer and I get in a fight in the middle of our presentations that are joint presentations. But I think today we might just get the giggles.
Yeah.
And then just decide halfway through we don't want to talk anymore.
There's movable chairs, Elmer. You better watch yourself.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people, when they saw it on the schedule, it's evidenced by the fact that there's probably not a lot of people here. Blogging, really, because who does that anymore? Don't we know everything about blogging? It's a little kind of a passing topic. And that's true. That's very, very true. And, but I'm actually going to go back a little bit further. So this guy right here is Samuel Pepys, P-E-P-Y-S. He lived in the middle of the 1600s, so middle 17th century. And he was a diarist, and he did what people do in their diary. He just wrote down his observations of what was going on around him, and he's British, and he happened to live through very exciting times, so I think he actually witnessed the beheading of King Charles I, or maybe Oliver Cromwell, but he was there for the Restoration, and the Plague, and the Great Fire of London. So, and he wrote it all down, and people now look at his diaries and see what life was like back then. This is not his diary. This is what's called a commonplace book, which we see a lot of, especially in the 18th century. And I think this might be, I forget where I got, well, I know where I got it. I got it off of Wikipedia. I think it's either Newton's or someone famous is commonplace book. But what a commonplace book is, it is a book where you just, if you see something interesting, you write it down. Maybe you take a flower that you found and dried it and glue it in there. Basically, it is a modern, old-day Tumblr is what it is. It's what you find, maybe some original thoughts, but it's just a collection of stuff you're interested in. They call it a commonplace book. And of course, everyone here, I should note this, the Federalist Papers were now forward in time a little bit to the 1780s, 1790s. These were, to 1780s. These were anonymous political writings trying to encourage the adoption of the US Constitution. But again, published by actual publishers, but written anonymously and used for persuasive writing. And then now to the 1990s and 1980s, zines. We could only go back to the 1990s, I would be so happy. But again, just that people decided that regular publishing wasn't quite meeting their needs, and so people were creating their own writing and publishing it just through Xerox copies or low-cost printers and distributing them various ways, usually by giving them to you outside of a Grateful Dead concert or some sort of concert. And so those are zines. And basically, everything I've described, if they had computers back then, what they would be doing is what we call a blog today. So, again on the history, okay, so again, everything you can do with a blog has already been done. It's just in human nature to do this, to keep a record of your daily life, a creative outlet. You can connect with others with similar interests, promote an organization or cause, like the Federalist Papers. There's a concept called the Fifth Estate. First three estates are the royalty, nobility, and the church. Fourth estate is the press, and that's, by estates I mean who controls or who has power. And now there's something called the Fifth Estate, and that is what you see bloggers, WikiLeaks, things like that, where people are taking control of information distribution systems and doing power to the people kind of things. And then also, like with Tumblr or Twitter, retweets and retumbles, you can collect ephemera, so you don't have to do any sort of content development yourself. You can just reshare other people's content. Or, if you're like some people, like myself, you might blog just because of other reasons. So, just as some brief history of writing on the web, starting back in the 1980s, early 90s, we saw Usenet groups. I'm not going to read through all this. But it went through online diaries, and then blogging platforms were developed, and then things got really serious because Google Blogger and WordPress was developed, and these are two blogging platforms. And it just became more and more part of the public consciousness. Now, in 2005, 2006, Facebook, which you're probably all on, or know your mom's on it or something. Actually, I shouldn't do that. I made a vow to myself to stop using my mother or people's mothers as the example of technologically incompetent. Stop doing that. It's ageist and it's sexist. It's wrong. But anyway, you probably know someone on Facebook if you're not on it yourself. And MySpace, which was much bigger at the time, was actually purchased by News Corp for $580 million. And then in 2007, Tumblr was released. And that's around the same time also Twitter was created. And those three, I think, Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter, have what has killed modern blogging because they just made it that you reshare other people's contents much more regularly than actually sitting down and writing your own material. Because creating content is very hard. Very hard. And I don't really have tips for doing that because I'm bad at it. I mean, I haven't blogged since March, and that's okay. I think in this day of RSS readers, you don't have to blog as regularly as you used to keep an audience because people don't actually visit your website. They just get it through a feed, or someone has shared it on one of these sharing services. But it's important that we start getting back into creating content and talking about things because legal education is in the midst of crisis, libraries are in the midst of crisis and change, legal information is in the midst of crisis and change, all technology is in the midst of crisis and change. All these changes are coming, all these, everyone has problems and worries, and by God, we should talk it out. And so that's why we're doing this session, because we want more people, more voices to be heard, more ideas to be thrown out, and we see, run up the flagpole and see if we salute it. So that's what we hope happens. And of course I would be remiss if I not mention that there are educational uses for blogging. If you're a faculty member, it builds your reputation. It's a really good way to try out ideas before you go through the publication process of a law journal article. You can actually post your law journal articles as a way to have your own repository. Again, check what your agreement was and what your copyright may or may not allow, but hopefully you can post at least a preprint or a draft of your work somewhere that is freely accessible. And studies have shown the more open and accessible scholarship is, the more often it is cited. Also, you can, like with regular blogging, you can find your people. I mean, honestly, I would be still alone somewhere in Kentucky without blogging and Twitter and Facebook because I didn't know that people thought or were interested in the same things I was interested in. And also in education, you can create casebooks or other learning objects. Actually, personally, I think the casebook is dead and it's going to be much more discrete pieces of information used as a learning object. But you could use a blog for your casebook. And for students, making your students blog is really good. It's good. That just sounded not really intelligent. Okay. This is where I'm getting slap happy because I'm so tired and I just shotgunned a Mountain Dew. It is an active learning process. So instead of a student just reading a case and waiting for them to be called on, make everyone write down what they think the case says. Let them read each other's blogs and comments. Your discussion can continue outside of the actual classroom. It's the 24/7 classroom. And also, not everyone likes to raise their hand. Not everyone likes to get into fights in the classroom, So it's more of a safe space where they can share their ideas without having to argue right there on the spot. And they can also connect with other students. Just a way to keep the learning going outside the classroom. And just some examples of websites, blogs. Here's the Law Professors Blog Network. What's the word I want to say? Full disclosure. The owner of this, Paul Karen, is on the board of CALI, so he technically, I guess, somewhere I have to say report to him, but it's a really good network of law professors blogging. Here's a casebook. This is actually the original version. It's by Brian Fry from the University of Kentucky. It's open source copyright casebook. It's still out there on the web. Anyone can use it. He has licensed it that way. But this is actually going to be an Elam Bell Press book coming out. Elmer, what do we know? This sometime. Coming out sometime.
Well, it's being all written, but interesting thing about that particular casebook, we've moved it over to WordPress. That's Blogspot. We moved it over to WordPress, and he's actually rewriting the casebook on the Law Books platform, which I'll be talking about tomorrow.
And also just another interesting thing about this, it was almost like a real blog. He was writing this as the class was going on, and so allowed for really last minute information to get to the course materials instead of, again, the long publication process of traditional casebooks. So, you want to start blogging, you want to start putting your opinion out on the internet, or otherwise just have your space on the internet. How do you get started? Some considerations to think about, and just throughout all this, just know you can do all of this absolutely for free. It does not cost anything to start blogging at all. But you can self-host it, which means you purchase space on a web server. This is what I do. I use a company called FatCow. It costs me $50 a year. The CEO doesn't shoot animals. I'm very happy with my service. You want to know how easy it is going to be to get your blog information out of that, the data export, should you choose to switch hosting companies. Do you want to write a lot? Do you want to just keep a commonplace book where you find interesting things on the web and you put it somewhere and you maybe write 1 or 2 lines about it or nothing at all about it? How do you feel about having advertisements on your blog? And know that usually when you have advertisements on the blog, you cannot control what advertisements appear on your blog. As you may tell, I am anti-advertisement. The URL, do you want something really fancy like sarahglassmeyer.com? Or are you happy with something that is sarahglassmeyer.wordpress.com? It just kind of depends on what, if you care about these things. And then again, how much money you want to spend. I spend $50 a year. I could do everything I've done totally for free. I just self-host because I'm a control freak and I like to be able to play around with my blog a little bit more than a hosted option would give me. So, this is the Legal Scholarship blog. It is a long-running, well-known blog by some librarians who just keep track of all the calls for papers that happen in the legal world. And they had a blog, long-running, and they decided they weren't happy with their hosting company. And they came to Cali and asked if we would host it for them. And we do, totally for free as far as I know. Yeah, I'm not getting any money out of it. And so Elmer's going to talk, his section is going to be all about Classcaster, which is Cali's blogging platform. But as you can see, it doesn't look any different than it did really before, not significantly different, and it's still able to maintain its legal scholarship blog URL. So, don't think you're tied to one hosting service or one place with your URL. You can move those around pretty easily. So, these are basically all of the things that people use to blog or share their opinions nowadays. I would recommend anything above the line. Coincidentally, all of those are also free. Some people may think Tumblr is kind of silly, and it is. And you can find either A, lots of porn, or B, lots of 12-year-olds complaining about how their dad sucks because he won't let them stay out past 10 p.m. But there is a lot of quality content on Tumblr that you can reblog, but also you can jam all of your own content in there. If you find stuff on the web, there's usually either a share on Tumblr button, or you could put one in your browser so you don't have to copy and paste a link. And then WordPress and Blog are free blogging platforms. And Twitter, which some people might be surprised to see in a blogging presentation. But in 140 characters, you can get a lot of information out, and you can share a lot of opinion in 140 characters. And just in my experience, it actually will make you a better writer, because you'll have to learn to really get your idea down to that short amount of material. And there's a huge, huge, huge community on Tumblr. or on Twitter, of people involved in legal education and technology that you can meet virtually and share ideas and share content with. There's not really things wrong with the ones below the line. Squarespace is a paid thing. Google Plus no one uses except Nick. Do you actually use Google Plus?
All the time.
Okay, yeah. I don't know because I don't go there, but so.
There are a ton of conversations happening there.
Okay. So I mean,
they're phasing it out.
No, they're not.
Don't say that.
No, seriously, they just added brand new features. They added the collections feature, which is amazing. It's basically like the reverse of circles, which is what I've been waiting for, because I want to target I want people to say that they want specific subsets of my content rather than say they want all of my content. And the same with other people. There's certain people I want certain subsegments of their content, not all of their content. I don't want all the pictures of the food that they eat.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, you know, the nice thing that these are free, you can play around and feel which one best meets your needs and which one kind of goes well with what you're interested in. Medium is one that I think is like the devil in disguise, because everyone is starting to be, it's like where the cool kids post now. And I just have this innate distrust of websites that you don't own. And lots of great stuff is getting published there, but as with any new company, it could disappear tomorrow, and then what happens? So, you know, feel free to post on Medium, be cool, be hip. But don't come crying to me when your data is all lost.
The one feature I really like in Medium, which can help sometimes and be silly other times, is that you can get paragraph by paragraph comments. So if you're asking questions and you want answers to something specific, I haven't used it myself, but I've seen some people who do use it effectively that way.
Okay, that's a good point, yeah.
There are
If you want
WordPress
one sort
plugins
of
to get that on your own.
Yeah, but not everybody's going to be managing a WordPress site with plugins, as my presentation talked about.
Okay, a brief mention of podcasting and blogging. Podcasting is blogging by talking, and vlogging is blogging by video, because not everyone is a writer, and that's okay. You can still share your opinion, information. Podcasting, I think, is kind of having this renaissance right now, when you see like Nerdist and WTF, and I listen to a lot of crazy UFO ones, but there are tons of podcasts out there. You can do a 10-minute podcast, you can do an hour and a half. It really just kind of depends on how long you want to talk and what works best for you. And you can host a podcast or a blog on these softwares, formats, and Elmer's going to show you how you can actually podcast with Classcast with nothing more than a phone call. But they are equally valid, I think, as blogging is. Podcasting and blogging. And I keep threatening to start a podcast just because sometimes it is hard to sit down at the computer and just stare at a blank, type your blog post here screen. But we shall see. Maybe next year I'll start a podcast. Okay, now to Elmer and Classcaster. So you're going to have to get up from your seat, Elmer. Oh man. And I will disconnect all my stuff.
Sorting itself out. I got too much time. How's everybody doing?
Good.
How's the conference going? Woo! Okay, so jump right into that. So I'm going to talk about Classcaster. And see that like this is. I'm do something silly like go to sleep in the middle of my talk. Okay, first key feature, Classcaster's 10 years old. So we've actually been running this blogging and podcasting network for 10 years. The first development work was done in the winter of 2005, and the first dial-up, no, dial-up's the wrong word. The first phone to podcast stuff was done in the spring of 2005. And somewhere, I have all that, but I couldn't find it. I've got a lot of data scrolled away. No, it's around someplace. But it's still there. It's at www.classcaster.net. Over the years, we've managed to amass over 30,000 hours. 30,000 hours of law school lectures, interviews, class summaries, Lord knows what, because there's no metadata, by the way, so we really don't know what's in there. But people uploaded a lot of audio. There's a bunch of video. Some professors record their classes with video and put them up. Folks have done like interview projects and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff in there. And it's freely available for Cali members to use. Originally, we were sort of hoping, well, originally we were really talking about being used just for classes, but it's easy enough to use. Law schools use it for career. There are a couple of career placement offices that use it to put up videos. There are some admissions offices that use it to put information up, although why they don't have an actual law school website. They have a law school blog. They have an admissions site, but for some reason they have a blog too. That whatever people do. Law libraries use it. You saw that Sarah showed you the Legal Scholarship Network that's run by librarians. Individual libraries, the Cleveland Marshall Law School uses it for two blogs, because they also do the Ohio Constitution News on there, which is just, are you ready? News about the Ohio Constitution.
Yes, and if you want more information on that, talk to Sue Altmeyer, who's
yes.
here.
Yeah, she's here.
I do most of the blog at CM, so thanks for the shout out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys use it a lot, and I think the great effect, I mean, it draws, it does plenty of traffic.
12,000 views last year. I just submitted a report.
So, we do, I mean, we don't draw a ton of traffic, but we do okay. But, we're a small community, so. And then legal education, what's wrong with that? Pointer, legal education. So that's all classroom sites or, course sites and that sort of stuff. I mean, we have a handful of bloggers who've been with us from the very beginning, almost. We're pretty close. Deb Cohen, who's around, has been blogging with Classcaster, I think almost, she might have started in the fall of 2000, or the winter of 2006. But she's been doing it continually. Norm Garland, right, at Southwestern, he's been using it since near the beginning. So there have been a number of people that have been blogging the whole time. Law Faculty put all kinds of stuff up there, right? They record their lectures either with just audio or video. They do lecture summaries, they put those up there. They put up their syllabi, they put up extra documents, they put up a lot of different things. The A to J course project, which you probably heard some about this week, if you've been going to some of our other sessions. The clinic project stuff is all hosted on Classcaster. So there's a bunch of stuff there that's still just enough to keep me busy. We have there are a handful of really nifty features on Classcaster that make it kind of interesting. The phone to podcast one, which I'll actually demo in a minute, because I never get tired of demoing it, because you call something on your phone and then it turns up on your blog. It doesn't get more magical than that, It's pretty cool. It's also the niftiest 20 lines of code I ever wrote, so there is that. We have some tools for course management. I'll take a quick look at those. They aren't very well developed, mostly because we haven't had faculty who are interested in sort of plumbing the depths of how we could use some of this stuff. We're always looking for those sorts of people. We have a new plugin that will be rolling out later this summer that you enter a court citation and you get the case from Fastcase. We've got a Fastcase API key and an agreement with them that allows us to use the text of the cases. Where as long as Fastcase has a site for it, we can get it. It's not a search service, so you can't sort of search for stuff. You have to know what you want, and it obviously excludes newer things that don't have citations yet. But if it has a site, you can find it. And then there's the custom domains feature, which Sarah mentioned with the legal scholarship blog. They had legalscholarshipblog.com. We were able to have that be pointed. So, if you're running a blog for your law library and you want to keep it at your .edu address for branding purposes or just sort of limit confusion or whatever. You can do that. It's pretty straightforward. You do need to know how to deal with who's ever in charge of your domain name service on your end. I don't do that. So you have to know who to contact to sort of get DNS records shifted around. But it works out. It's not that difficult to do, and we have a number of domains that do it. Not too many, but interestingly enough, no .edu domains, and that bothers me. Mostly because when I first rolled it out several years ago, people told me, we can't do that, it's way too hard. Now, how many of you know about the libguy that's hosted someplace else that has the .edu address on it, right? That's exactly the same thing. So, if you can do it for them, and you're paying them money, we can do the same thing for free. Actually, you could take all your libguides and turn them into WordPress blogs, but I'm not going to talk about that. Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but you know what, it's close enough.
Less modular.
Yeah, a little less modular. I know, libguides are fine for. Libguides are really fine for what they were designed for, which was public libraries without support. Anyway, so let's take a look at. So let's take a look at a couple of the things real quick here. Because unlike Emily, I'm not afraid to dive into the back end of WordPress at all. So let's take a look at the Fastcase.
We did have a bit of a
I know.
What are you talking about?
Yes. I have a Fastcase API key because I asked for one. I don't know how many of these they're going to give out, frankly, but I think that if law libraries wanted to use this plugin, and then they went and contacted Ed Walters at Fastcase and said, Elmer said, you could probably get an API key. The interface on this isn't quite done yet, so that's why this is in kind of a weird spot. So you can enter the opinion of a case. That's just sort of a default one. Does anybody have an opinion? Does anybody know the citation of their favorite Supreme Court decision? So we use this one. I already have like 97 copies of this. So you just type it in, and we hit the get an opinion button. It'll come in back with the opinion. And then
encoding errors.
Huh?
With encoding errors.
Yeah, there are encoding errors. Yet there's a weird thing I'm trying. I need to talk to Ed about that. Sometimes there's encoding errors in the data that comes back. Also, sometimes different versions come back, like not different like it's the same case. All the text is the same, but the way it lays out, the way it's marked up is different. It's like I'm hitting two different endpoints. But anyway, so you've got this. You can clean it cleans up nicely, and then you can just you can save it. See, that's why I didn't really want to use this one for an example, because I knew 90% of the time that happens. But you've got the whole case. So if a faculty member wants to, use this as a way to sort of add stuff to, to his, for his course and stuff. And the footnotes, and some of the opinions, the footnotes work, some of them don't. Depends on how Fastcase has it marked up. We're sort of at their mercy on that. But I'm working on a way to process. That's why one of the reasons this is an open, I'm trying to fix those encoding errors because I'm just pulling in the data that they send and trying to clean it up a little bit.
So the purpose of this is creating a post that is the text of the case.
Yep.
It's not about, like, if I'm writing a post and I want to get something out of a case, it's not for that.
Yeah, it wouldn't really work well for that. Unless you wanted to sort of sift through it. I mean, the idea here is primarily for casebook type stuff or course material stuff. So, faculty member creates a Classbased a blog for his course, and then he can go out and find the cases that he wants to assign to students, put them up, display them, organize them however he wants them to show up. I mean, you could use the, it has access to all the WordPress features. So, you could set it to publish later, right? So I get the case, students shouldn't read this case for like 2 weeks, right? That's when the assignment is. So I set it to publish in like 10 days, right? So that gives them, 4 days from the time it shows up before the class we're going to discuss it to read the case here. You can use this in combination with things like CommentPress that does the paragraph to paragraph commenting to elicit student student sort of reaction to, you're going to tell them, I need you to go in and read this case and then comment on, this particular paragraph, right, where the decision is stated or whatever, how's that going to go? So there are different ways to use this sort of thing. And of course, because you can always add, you're free to add smileys and stuff, because one of the things that I think is missing from American case law, in a lot of ways, is emoji. So you should get, you can mark up the case with, because there's probably a lot of eye rolling, for example, in many Supreme Court decisions, especially these days. So you can add those sorts of things. So you can go in and mark all this up.
Can I ask you about comments? We've turned off our comments. I've been there at Cleveland Marshall almost 2 years, and pretty much when I got there, I turned them off soon thereafter because we were just getting so much spam with it. Very, very little in terms of anything, useful to the students or to us. Have other people reported that?
Oh yeah, it's a huge problem. So the way that we solve that with class-based stuff is we actually have the students register on the site, and the only way you can register on the site at all is with a valid Cali account. So you have to go through the whole thing of creating a Cali account before you can create a Classcaster blog. And if you want your students to, if you want to avoid that whole spam problem. And there are tools for dealing with them. They have various amounts of effect. And I know you guys did have a huge problem for a while. And that's happened on other blogs too. You sort of get found and comments are open and they just sort of flood in like all of a sudden. But the way that we worked with faculty who wanted to do that sort of stuff with their students is the students get a Cali account, they get access to the blog as subscribers usually. There's a handful of set roles. For a given blog, when you create a blog, there's a plugin that you can turn on and lets you create more roles. Like if you want to, if you're doing a journal, right? So you want to put your law review on Classbased, which would be fine. You might have a whole hierarchy of editors that you want to have different roles for, and they can do different things, and you could set all that up. But once the students have an account, then you can control, you can give them the ability to comment on stuff without having to have that wide open. But it is a problem. And it's, you know, we actually, we have better security in place now. And so we actually stop a lot of that at sort of before it ever gets to the server, because we're tracking IP addresses that create spam comments that, you know, get picked up by the filters and all that sort of stuff, and then we're banning them before they ever get to the website. So it's made it a little bit better, but there's still, I mean, there are a couple of hundred websites. I went through one time and I tried shutting a bunch, like moving in the archive mode, because I never delete anything. And then, you know, because it didn't appear to be any traffic. And I got an email from somebody like, what happened to all my collection of, you know, my collection of podcasts that I put out? I'm like, your blog says there's like nothing there. And he's like, no, I was uploading them. And I looked and they were all in the media library, which I had to check to see if there's any activity there. He was using us for file storage. And then linking from Twen, which didn't allow you to upload MP3s. I don't know if it still does that, but for a long time you couldn't upload MP3s to Twen. So he was uploading his MP3s to Classcaster and then linking to it from Twen. And I turned off his blog because it looked like there was no activity, because the media uploads weren't getting logged on my dashboard, so I couldn't see them. But this is what the opinion would look like in a nice plain theme. And this is pretty much exactly how it comes from Fastcase. And then this one actually has working footnotes, so you can kind of dive around in the footnotes a little bit as you go through that. We're going to roll this out hopefully by the end of the summer for Classcaster and also for the law books project, which I'll be talking about tomorrow, which is really just a really super specialized version of WordPress. So. You know, if you absolutely positively insist that you need a book, then that's what it is. Any other questions? Kind of flipping around up here. The other thing is we can take a quick look at the, let's see what I have.
Did you show the hide part of this plugin, the plugin where you can hide parts of the case?
Oh, no, I didn't do that. Thanks for reminding me. So when you're editing something, like we're editing this, with all the bad stuff, I would go back up to the top of this piece. Thanks for reminding me, because I kind of forgot about that, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff here that maybe students don't need to, you want to sort of just stash away all the parts with, all of all the lawyers and whatnot here. So we actually have a plugin called, well, I forget what it's called, Slider, and so we can just, it works as a short code, and I forget. I'm drawing a blank because I hadn't planned on.
I know you can just press a button to do it too.
No, I don't have the button working.
Oh.
I think it's title. I think it's title equals, and then you can put anything you want in there, and we'll just use ellipses, and then close that short tag, and then go down to the end of where you want to make it disappear, which is somewhere around here. Say, and then we'll close the short code. So WordPress uses these things called short codes, which are just little, well, they're short codes. So when the text gets processed, when you do a save or whatever, and you process the text, it does special things with those little codes. So Slider's one of those. Let me just double check to make sure that's turned on. Yeah, sliding notes. Sliding notes. I think it's Slider, yes. And then if we do, I think I can get this on. So let's see, let's jump down to the bottom here. So we'll hit the publish button. That'll go off and publish that. I can take a look at the post. So now if I'm scrolling down, see, so now I see my little ellipses, and that's hidden part of that part of the case. Okay. So if you're a faculty member and you only want your students to see part of the case, or you want to edit it down but leave the rest of it there, you can use that that little feature to sort of hide paragraphs, hide sections that you don't want students to, that you don't want them to read. So you're just really focused on a particular, you just want them to read the part where it's, the sort of, the actual, law part. But you don't want to, you want to leave the rest of it there in case they want to go back and read it, right? Because they're liable to go and find it anyway. I mean, I know certainly one of my favorite things to do in law school was go back and look up all the edited cases from the casebook and read them in their entirety, am I right? So, but students sometimes do. I mean, you read a little bit of a case in a casebook that's been edited down, and you find it interesting. Because I suppose if you don't find it interesting, maybe you should be rethinking your career choices. But you find it interesting, and you go and find the case. I mean, I did that, more than once. So it's something like this. You can do that as a faculty member. You can set that up, and then they can find it. Let's see. I don't think I have the custom domain one turned on here. So let's do the. We can make a podcast because that's always fun. It's like my favorite. It's like my favorite thing to demo. So if I wanted to be really well, actually, this might work. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call. I do have an entry in my address book called Classcaster Phone Blog because I call it every so often just to make sure it's still working. I'll put this on speaker.
Welcome to Classcast. Please enter your 10-digit phone number.
That's me doing voice menus 10 years ago on a really old computer.
Please enter your 4-digit PIN.
So using a combination of a phone number and 10-digit PIN.
Press pound to stop recording.
Right. So now we're recording, so everything I'm saying is getting recorded, and then and we can go on and on, like for a while. And the thing is, it has a theoretical max that sort of is like the size of the hard drive. So I've run these for up to like 4 hours when I was doing testing many years ago. So presumably it would still work like that. But if I was suddenly afflicted with bad cell reception right now, which was more of an issue previously than it is now, what it would do is it would detect the call drop and then wrap the whole thing up and publish what was recorded, so you don't actually lose anything. So we're going to hit the pound sign here in that.
Press 3 to review your lecture.
We were calling them lecturettes when we did this, and that never stopped. And I never went back and recorded the voice menus because who does that? Okay, so I hung up and I did that, and then we'll go right back here to let's see. We'll go to posts. This is still technically not there. So there should be a draft. Notice. A minute ago, that's because this is what we're just. So it just creates a generic post on the blog, and I note that it is a draft. So these don't actually get published. They get moved to the blog and they get saved as drafts. So it's not talk and then release because, well, sometimes people say inappropriate things on the telephone. So this gives you an opportunity to review. You could actually download the audio and edit it. Some people have done that. They've created little, musical, little lead-ins and stuff, and so they've gone through and done that. We'll actually hit. Well, we'll go down here. So let's do this. Let's turn up my audio, and then if I hit the play button. So now we're recording, so everything I'm saying is getting recorded, and then And there it is.
Go on and on, like for a while. And the thing is, it has a theoretical max that sort of is like the size of the hard drive. So.
And then that goes on. Then if I hit the play button, or if I hit the publish button, that throws it right out to the blog. I of course let the graph text up and all that sort of stuff. We can take a look at the post. And then that's it. It's just, you know, you don't need to do anything. And there's a podcast. So, and I can share it on Twitter if I want to, or I can share it on Facebook. Or look, Nick, Google Plus. And that's, you know, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So it's kind of cool. You know, there's probably you know, and then you can also do podcasting the more traditional way, which is go out and spend $10,000 and build a little recording studio in your room, and then do some recording and you know, clear the rights to your favorite song, use it as your intro and all the other stuff, and then upload the MP3s to Classcaster and do it that way. And that works too. We did a thing when we initially did the project. We gave faculty, because in 2005, does anybody remember what cell service was like inside the law schools in 2005? Less than reliable. So we actually shipped around a bunch of little digital recorders that recorded MP3s and had them record them, and then they just plugged in via USB and had people, you know, just record and then upload it. That works also.
Or if you wanted to put together resources other people could use for podcasting, you can get them from the Internet Archive.
That's true.
Because there's tons of great stuff there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. So, so there's, you know, the podcasting part of Classcaster is my favorite thing, and also probably the least used, but it is still cool. And podcasting is coming back.
Yeah.
My local newspaper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, recently started one of those crime blog podcasting series things.
Oh, neat.
Oh yeah, they went out and dug up some cold case or something with lots of, you know, anyway. And so I haven't listened to it, but it's supposed to be after the vein of, what was it?
Serial.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of newspapers are doing those now. That's like the thing. That probably buys you about 6 months, you know what I mean? At the end of the day. Well, if they keep making newspapers, like, you know, narrower and smaller, pretty soon they'll just disappear. So, well, that's about all I got. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Okay. I just wanted to comment to the comment question.
Yeah.
I find that if you use third-party services for comments, you get a lot less spam. In particular, Discus. Discus does a really good job of just. I think I've gotten on my blog where I used to get 50 spams a day. I get one a month. That and they recognize it as this is probably spam, but just check it. Right? And part of that is simply because they're processing so many comments that it becomes very easy for them to see patterns. And so plus they require everybody to authenticate with something. I mean, part of what he said was what you do is you make people sign up for users, and then only the students can comment. But if you want a wider comment base of the world, Discus makes them sign in with some social network, and they support basically everything. So that at least it's tied to an account somewhere. Now, it's not preventing people from signing up fake accounts on Facebook, which they do, but it at least that filters out a lot, and then them knowing so many messages helps.
There'll be less messages from Nigerian princes.
Well, and not just that, but they actually, some major blogs that were having problems with the conversations being less than genteel, found that moving to Discuss, where they use the Facebook logins and things like that, where people are using logins that are tied to their identities, reduce the impolite quality of the conversation. Now, other people have concerns about Discuss because it does aggregate your comments across the web in a way that is visible unless you go in there and fiddle with your privacy settings. So if people are feeling concerned about anyone tracking what they're saying on the web in comments, I've had a few people who are like, wait, what? Like, I did not expect people to be able to see, like, I clicked on my own name a couple times and things and was like, oh, I left a weird comment about Hermione Granger on some fashion blog, who knew? I wasn't really worried about it, I just thought that was odd that I could go back and see everything I've been saying across the web.
Yeah.
So you run into some people who refuse to log into systems like that because they feel like they're tracking them in a way that imposes on their privacy.
There are other ways. There are other ones besides Discus.
Right.
Discus is just one of the most popular ones. There's one. In fact, there's one that comes as part of Jetpack, which is automatic. The company that makes WordPress is the thing.
Yeah.
It simply has the social login point of view, and then if you combine the social login point of view with Kismet, it does a pretty darn good job of filtering out.
Yes.
You know, probably 95% of this.
Yeah, and there was a point where Cleveland Marshall, you guys also just basically had comments on and like no moderation or anything. And so it's just
Yeah. And then I felt though that, you know, because we're putting stuff out at least one day a week during a business week, that plus with all of our other responsibilities, that moderation.
Yeah, even moderation's not a. I mean,
There's onerous, yeah.
Yeah, on my personal blog, I just use moderation, and I just because I know. Well, and I have a Kismet turned on too, and it actually catches about almost everything, and like I get no real comments anyway, so you know.
We might not get a lot, but you know, so it would be nice if, you know, say somebody, from our point of view, we would want comments like if somebody said, hey, can I get more information on that? And I can say, hey, here's what we got in the library, here's what you got online, you know, the normal librarian stuff.
Yeah, and if I get the, we get the Jetpack thing in, that has tools for that, and that's on my list of stuff that we need to sort out before. Well, I think one of the other things with Jetpack that I remembered when you were flipping through it was that like a lot of the features that are in Jetpack require replace other plugins, and they do other things, and it's not open source. So the and it would also require, for it to fully work, would require each blog editor, you know, admin, to get an account with WordPress.com. And one of the things that, like, one of the reasons why I don't,
you can network set it.
I can network set it, but then the aggregate thing, it works a little bit different than
that's what I use for our multi-site. I haven't had any problems with it because I can set the like for stats and things like that. I just use a really generic one that we set up for the library that's not tied to any personal account.
Yeah, I mean, we have stats, and we've got stats, we've got Google Analytics, we've got all the social stuff there. I mean, a bunch of all that stuff.
Those are the ones that actually use the login, and you can choose to turn off certain modules so they're not even available to pull across multi-site.
That's not what we want to see. It just goes on here. Yeah, I mean, we've got, let's see, I'll show you the dashboard on this one. So, this is like the main blog, or the sort of the front page. We've got like the last 30-day stats, and I've got Google Analytics wired in, so somebody goes and gets, you know, their own.
I just find that in terms of people choosing the setup that they want, Jetpack makes it a lot easier for them to get up and running without.
Yeah, it's all in one place.
Plugins,
yeah, I know.
Which is useful for beginners, and some of the things are very powerful.
Yeah.
Right, like it's the only plugin I've found so far, of course I haven't looked in a while, so maybe somebody else has found one, that actually lets you auto-post to Google+. Because Google has that API locked down to have require approval, and WordPress has gotten approval, but only if they don't open the source. Right. So that was part of the thing, because Google doesn't want everybody else opening the API up and just using it to spam Google+. So the Jetpack Publicize plugin, which is, by the way, pretty much the best plugin I've found for auto-posting your content to social media.
Yeah, it actually is. I use that on my main own blog.
Is also happens to be the only one that can post to Google+. And more importantly, the only one that can post to Google+ personal profiles. The only that I found, because you can post to Google+ pages with Hootsuite, but not to personal profiles. So,
Yeah, no, it does a good job of putting stuff on LinkedIn, and,
although they can't put it on LinkedIn personal profiles.
yeah.
Can I do it
Well-
on university pages? That's what I haven't been able to find for social media. It can do companies. I found Buffer App does companies, and yeah, but we've got a university page we're doing social media for. I haven't found any way to schedule anything to those.
On LinkedIn?
Yeah,
You know, LinkedIn's
it's less
LinkedIn's
than
weird
10
when it
MB
comes
for
to
social
auto
media.
posting to anything. Very, because the way that you, well, they have APIs to do it, every single one is different. Like, it's a different API to post to a university page than it is to post to a company page than it is to post to a personal page. Why? Just because. And so,
Yeah.
it's just so nobody's written the plugin to use the other API.
And you can do weird things in like the last 2 minutes, right? So this is technoids.com, not to be confused with technoids.net, which is the really, really super lame Drupal website that posts mailing lists. But I own a bunch of those domains. So. But technoids.com, what this does is I've got my own RSS feed. I host everything myself because that's the kind of guy I am. So I've got an RSS aggregator, tiny RSS. I get a gazillion feeds. I don't look at it all the time because I don't have enough time. And you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, sometimes you're busy, forget about that. It's like not reading a newspaper. Happens sometimes. But when I do, I can flag stuff there. It creates an RSS feed, which gets picked up by this blog, which then goes and pulls the articles in from wherever it is they're coming from. This one is from TechCrunch, and then it sort of reblogs, and so we get we get some interesting things, and then it also then pushes some of this stuff out to like my Twitter feed and LinkedIn and different places, and sort of automatically on the backside. So. You know, someday I'm going to create a feedback loop that causes the internet to explode. Boom. I'm going to tag the wrong news article, and then it's just all over. All right.
Did you give me a warning first?
Yeah, I will. I'll give you a heads up. I'll let you know. Today's the day. Boom. Well, I actually had that problem when I was first setting up Jetpack. Somehow I managed that. Something running on my Facebook profile that was also posting stuff I was grabbing like the RSS back when you could get your news feed as an RSS feed from Facebook. So I had my blog grabbing the RSS feed from Facebook, and then my Facebook posts, and I fired up Jetpack. Might not have been Jetpack. It might have been one of the earlier Facebook, like WordBook, whatever it's one of them. But so I did a post. It posted to Facebook. It picked it up on the feed, posted it back to my blog, posted it to Facebook, and it was moving. It was kind of cool for a minute. And then, and the weird part about it was that, like nobody's like, Facebook's API wasn't spotting that as like some sort of weird thing or something. It just had a bunch of identical posts. Okay, and time. Yay. Thank you. Enjoy your evening. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Right.